I grew up in Arkansas. I had two uncles that were attorneys, and I was fortunate enough that they let me start with them really early. I got to be around a law office probably since I was about 16 years old, and I really enjoy the process of helping people out who can't help themselves. And it's nothing to be ashamed about. It's the way it is. There's nobody, unless you go to law school or unless you are well-versed in the subject, you're usually dealing with forces that are beyond your control and things you don't understand. And you need help. You need someone to help you out with the process of any claim that you're going through. And I learned early on that it's a struggle for anybody who's trying to go through that process alone. While I was going to law school in Southern Illinois, my brother actually lived in Poplar Bluff, Missouri, and through him I had met Todd Richardson, an attorney in our firm and a friend of mine. And I really was wanting to spend time with my brother for the summer, and I knew about the firm through Todd, and I knew how successful they were, and I was interested in doing workers' compensation claims. I had read up on it, and I knew that Missouri was, at the time, a good place to practice it, and it just worked out. Through Todd, Todd got me an interview, and I met Ron and Jack and Terry and Matt and all of the attorneys in the firm, and it just felt like a really good fit. It's a huge advantage to have Matt Richardson, Terry Shellhammer, Jack Nolan, and Ron Little. And it's a big advantage that Terry does a lot of Social Security work and that Matt does a lot of personal injury work, because those things intersect sometimes. I mean, it's common to have a work injury that an employee may have to go on Social Security for, or an employee may have a separate personal injury case for, and they're right down the hall. And they're two of the more knowledgeable attorneys that I've ever met. They're very good in the area that they work in, Matt and Terry. So it's quite simple for us, and it makes it easier for us to focus on workers' compensation, because if that issue comes in, all we have to do is spot it, and we can make a call right down the hall and invite Matt or Terry in. You're not going to find two people with more experience than Ron Little and Jack Nolan. It's a huge benefit whenever you're learning something that can be complicated and certainly deserves the right to be a specialty in the field of law. You're not going to have an opportunity to just be able to go into either one of your managing partner's office and just ask any random question. It's a luxury that I've had. Jack being a judge, an administrative law judge for over 20 years, and Ron practicing workers' compensation exclusively for a good number of years. It was easy for me to be able to ask them questions, and there's nothing that I'm going to see that they haven't seen. And that's such a huge benefit for me practicing workers' compensation, because if I ever have a question or run into something unique, I'd be willing to bet that those two have seen it. I'm from a small town in Arkansas. My parents are blue collar. My grandparents were blue collar. I understand working 40, 50 hours a week. I understand having to put in hours just so you can provide for your kids to go do something. And I understand that motivation, I think, because that's what my parents did for me. But I had also seen people get hurt, and then for whatever reason, whether it be an injury outside of work or an injury at work, but for whatever reason, struggle to keep providing for their family just because they've had this injury at work, and thinking, well, there has to be a remedy for this. There has to be something for these hardworking people that, even if I don't know them personally, I feel like I know their struggle. For them to process it, get through, get as good as they're going to get, and move on with their lives. And that's how I got interested in workers' compensation, was recognizing the people that were getting hurt, recognizing the situation that they got in with medical treatment and disability that they were going to have for the rest of their life, and helping them get through it. Now, workers' compensation was designed to be simple, but it's not. What I hear most from employees that we represent is, I'm getting phone calls left and right, I'm trying to get back to work, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get back to work, I'm worried about my employer, and that can be troublesome, and we understand that that can be troublesome. There's been studies done that without representation in Missouri, usually claims are settled extremely lower, sometimes even 50% lower than what they should be. That's why it helps to have experience there, and to know not only, well, I'm going to get at least the medical treatment that I deserve. I'm going to be comfortable when that medical treatment's over, which is important. But also that I'm going to settle my case or adjudicate my case for the max benefit that it's really worth. And without talking to an attorney, any attorney, it's very difficult to know that, because why would you know that? We would certainly have a hard time without our legal assistants. We've been lucky enough to have legal assistants that have been around for longer than I have and are so well versed in the terminology of workers' compensation and the procedure, which is so important, because you're not going to learn that without just doing it every day, the procedure part of it. My legal assistant's been around for 9 years. She takes phone calls every single day. We're never going to charge for phone calls. We never do that. We want our clients to call in and talk to us, and our legal assistants are always great about lending an ear. And when it's something that requires legal advice, it's in our office automatically. You know, if it's something more than an update on treatment or anything like that, it's, hey, I think I need to talk to Ron or Jack or Nick. They're in our office, and they sit in on those conversations. When we say support, we really do feel like it is you've got a full team behind you. That's how we like to attack things, is that you've got a team that is representing you. Well, I love Southern Illinois. I really enjoyed going to school there. I learned so much, and I feel like got really familiar with the area. Or at least regarding workers' compensation in Illinois, there are some benefits that Missouri doesn't provide. Namely, in Illinois, sometimes it's easier to get the treatment that you want, the medical treatment, as far as selecting your own provider. And that's, you know, in Missouri, 95% of the battles that we have is regarding medical treatment. So it was kind of a no-brainer. I knew that I wanted to practice law in Illinois. That's why I went to school in Illinois. So after I took the Missouri bar, I told Ron and Jack, I think I want to get over there too, and they supported me throughout the entire process, and we're all excited to expand our practice over there. Well, the cost of hiring an attorney, as far as Missouri workers' compensation cases go, and Illinois workers' compensation cases, they're capped statutorily. In Missouri, it's 25%. In Illinois, it's 20%. What I really like about our firm, and what I researched about before I interviewed with this firm, was we don't charge for minutia, is what I call it. So phone calls, we don't charge for. Little things like that. Like I said, we want you calling in and talking to us. We do have to front expenses sometimes on cases to get you to a doctor, to get a medical rating. But if we do settle your case, or if we take your case to trial and win, our 25% fee or our 20% fee comes off after we take those expenses off. We wouldn't put those on, get you an award, and then take 25 or 20% of that. We're not interested in doing that. And also, and maybe the most important thing, is that if we lose, we lose. You don't get anything and we don't get anything. And that's the way we like to run the business. And it's pretty simple. We want you to be confident in us. And I think that would surely enforce confidence in your attorney representing you, that we don't have any interest in losing. We don't have any interest in being lazy, not processing your claim. We have interest in getting you the best result we can get. After an injury, we understand it's a chaotic time, it's a scary time, because there's a lot of uncertainty around it. And most employees know immediately, I need to report this to my employer. They're hopefully going to send me to a good doctor. Either way, whether they do or not, it's important to get an attorney involved early on in the case, because some cases go awry. With you have an injury, 3 or 4 months goes by and you're dealing with your employer and the insurance company, and you make a mistake that you would have never known would affect your workers' compensation case, but does. That's why it's important to get an attorney in early, because so many times we see clients that have come in and have waited maybe a little too long, and there's benefits that we can't get them because of a mistake that they made just out of ignorance, nothing on their fault, but there'd be no reason they would know that that was a mistake at the time. It can feel like you against the world sometimes, because unfortunately your employer or the insurance company that's representing your employer does not have your best interest in mind, and unfortunately that's what we see most of the time. They've got a team they're not working for you, and if they're not working against you, they're certainly not trying to help you. They're trying to process your claim and get this thing done as cheap as possible. That's why it's important to get in and see an attorney as quick as you can, because it's time for you to get your team behind you too.